5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Should be live, Chairman.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting as the Crime and Disorder Committee meeting on Thursday the 22nd of October 2020. My name is Councillor Michael Helm and I am Chairman of this committee. This meeting is held under new regulations which came into effect on the 4th of April in response to the COVID-19 situation. And there are just a few housekeeping issues to run through. First of all, please could I ask everyone present in this meeting to ensure your microphones remain muted and your video feed is off when not addressing the committee. This will reduce background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbance. This meeting is being hosted remotely, streamed live and recorded. And by being present in this meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers. We're getting an echo here, please. Members and officers, during each item, please use the chat function of the meeting to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Members are reminded that apart from indicating you wish to speak or that you have to leave the meeting, the chat function should not be used for questions or any other purpose. Please do not use the raised hands function as this is not available on all members' devices. When speaking and referring to agenda paper, please ensure you reference the page and paragraph number. And last, if members need to leave the meeting at any point, please do make this known and use the chat function to signify that you need to leave the meeting. Now may I ask officers and other parties taking part in the meeting to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes.
Good evening, members. Richard Holmes, Director of Service Delivery.
Okay. Mr. Clark.
Good evening, members. Spencer Clark. I'm the Community Safety Partnership Manager at Molden District Council.
Thank you. Chief Inspector Scott Haynes.
Good evening, members. Chief Inspector Steve Scott Haynes, District Commander for Chelmsford and Molden.
Thank you very much. Miss Bird.
Good evening, members. Tara Bird, Committee Services Officer for the meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Is there any officers present?
Good evening, members. Paul Dodson, Director of Strategy, Performance and Governance.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anybody else? No? Okay. Tara, please can you now carry out the roll call of members to confirm who is in attendance? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, to call your names alphabetically, if you could just confirm if you're in attendance, please. Starting with Councillor Bell.
Yes, present. Good evening, Tara. Good evening, members.
Good evening. Councillor Mrs Fleming.
Present, Tara.
Thank you very much. Councillor Helm, you're here.
Yeah.
Councillor Hurd.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Tara and colleagues. Present.
Thank you. Councillor Morley.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nunn.
Yes, good evening, Tara. Good evening, members and everybody. I'm present.
Good evening. Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
I've got to say it this way. Evening all. I am present.
Thank you very much. And Chairman, could I ask if there's any other members in attendance, if they could just advise, please?
Yeah,
yes, Tara. Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Councillor Swain.
Councillor Bamford, present.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Tara. Councillor Channer here.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. Any other members present?
Councillor Morris, did you want to say something?
Councillor Morris is in attendance and hello.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm also here, Tara.
Councillor Hull.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you.
Item 3 is recommended the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of November 2019 found on pages 7 to 14 are approved as a true and accurate record.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt. Apologies for absence.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, apologies for absence. I missed that one out. Yeah. Apologies for absence.
Chairman, apologies are being received from Councillor Dewick.
Okay. Move on to the minutes. I've got as far as accurate record. I'll run through the pages. Page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11.
Sorry, Chairman, a couple of things. Can I just start on page 5, please?
Yes, of course you can.
It's minute number 964.
Yes.
It said that Councillor had requested it be clarified whether the 185 stop checks conducted related to the Molden or Chelmsford area.
Okay.
I will be speaking about that later on, but after that it says police accessibility. It's the middle line of that. It said members were advised that the government had changes. That should be changed, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Can you amend that, Tara?
Yes, of course, Chairman, we can do that.
Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9.
Page 9, please, Chairman.
Yes.
Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs down. The one that starts Inspector Barry Booth.
Yeah.
3 lines up from the bottom, it talks about a discrete rural team. I think that should be discretionary rural team, or if it's discrete, it should be spelled a different way.
Okay. Can you amend that, please, Tara?
Yes, of course, Chairman. Thank you.
Page 10. Page 11. I so move.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay. If any members wishes to raise matters of accuracy, we've done that. Okay, you all agreed it.
Agreed.
Nobody wants to speak? Right.
Chairman, no, I would. There was a couple of points that I would like to raise in relation to the minutes, but they're not corrections.
Okay, carry on.
Thank you. It really relates to my disappointment. This is on top of page 9, that the Police and Crime Commissioner had failed to attend the last meeting, which was held in October. Obviously, there wasn't a March meeting, and I am once again disappointed that the Police and Crime Commissioner is not here in order that some of the crime figures, which I'll be referring to later on, I was rather hoping that he would be here to justify some of those figures. The other question that I had asked was whether or not the 185 stop checks related to the Molden or the Chelmsford area. They might be able to help me, please.
Can anyone help with that, please?
I'm happy to take it at a later date if those figures.
Okay, fine.
Sorry, can I just get in that those figures would relate to both Chelmsford and Molden, because my understanding is we are unable to separate them at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, okay, that's done. That's all tidied up. Public participation, there's none. Declarations of interest disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests or other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to the paragraph 6 to 8, inclusive of the code of conduct for members. Members are reminded that they should also require to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. If any member has an interest to declare, please use the chat function now to indicate, and I will invite them to speak. Anybody?
Chairman, no one's indicated.
Okay. Chairman,
Yeah.
do I have to? I'm in attendance. Do I need to? I'm in attendance. I can't remember now. I should do, shouldn't I? But I will do. if you want. I'm just also an Essex County Councillor.
Yeah, okay.
And of course, the Police and Crime Commissioner close liaison with Essex County Council and other matters on the agenda.
Okay. Right, we move to item 6, police performance update. We move the agenda update and verbal update from Chief Inspector Scott Haynes. Chief Inspector Scott Haynes, please.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman, my
That's
buttons I wasn't quick enough with. I do apologise.
Right. I've probably run anyway, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. So as you'll see in the information that you've been sent out, currently with the basic figures of performance, we've got a 15.7% increase in antisocial behaviour, although happily a 2% reduction in all crime. Antisocial behaviour is being fuelled by some of the COVID issues that have been highlighted. Certainly we're getting a lot of information around fly tipping and around speeding motorists. That's all recorded under that same banner, and we're obviously addressing those. Violence against the person, again, has seen significant increase of 12%. But again, we know that some of that is coming from our increase in recording some of the violence that is and stalking issues that are happening around domestic violence. Domestic violence as a whole, as we know, due to COVID, we have seen some worrying increases across the county. Some of those were initially hidden, I would suggest, because people were not contacting the police but going to other agencies and to charities. We are seeing that turning the corner now, and those charities are directing people to the police, and so we're in a better position to deal with those matters and to put in positive steps to help vulnerable victims around that. I'm going to come away from the figures and give you a wider update on policing. So we continue with our Operation Aegis, which is our policing of organised crime groups. We had a significant success last year, which removed quite a serious organised crime group. We have seen a number of people try to step forward to take over that slot. But with our town team officers working in conjunction with the serious crime teams, we've had some significant successes with a warrant which recovered £50,000 worth of Class A drugs, and a significant stop check by the town team officers which recovered over £20,000 worth of drugs and cash, and subsequently arrested 2 people for that. Those patrols continue. Operation Enlightenment, which my colleague Barry spoke to you about last time. This is our engagement with schools. As you can imagine, with the COVID lockdown, that's been somewhat stretched and more difficult. As the schools have come back, we've ensured that the community policing team officers have gone back into schools to assist, 1 with COVID legislation, and 2 with dealing with any matters that have been highlighted during the time children have been away. We put some particular emphasis on giving children the opportunity to talk to us and to the pastoral care teams to look around any issues they may have had at home that they have been unable to talk to people about. We have also increased our child and young persons officers to 4 from 3. So we're looking at widening our net with schools. Currently, we do a lot of work with the senior schools, but we are looking to move that to junior schools as well. Go to engagement. Our PCSOs and town team officers are our main level of engagement. Where we used to do all of our coffee with cops, etc., those things have not been going ahead as much as we would have wanted due to COVID and restrictions. But we have started to increase those now, doing them in as COVID safe a way as we can. We're using Teams, although as you can see, I'm not great with the buttons on it, where we can to develop those opportunities to talk to various groups. And of course, situations like this allow us to do that. If I go to our special constabulary, we're now in a position where we have 3 community special constables who are dedicated to the Molden area. They are now in post and in place, same as all other special constables, fully trained, but in this instance, they work specifically in Molden and would only be taken away from Molden if there was a major incident. We have a 4th community special constable who is working at Southwood and Ferris. We continue to try and build those numbers. Our neighbourhood watch system here in the Molden area, still looking to grow that. We're still looking to put in place the WhatsApp group that we have in Chelmsford at this side, and due to the lead of the neighbourhood watch from this area stepping down, there is a gap there that needs to be filled. Chelmsford Neighbourhood Watch have kindly taken on some of the responsibilities around treasury, the treasury of it, etc. And so they are assisting us to try and find a new leader of the Neighbourhood Watch to increase what's going on there. Community policing team. This is the big one. Our community policing team, we know, work from the Community Safety Partnership civic building in Chelmsford. I would really like to move that back into the Molden area. Currently, we don't have physical space to do that. We're currently looking at negotiations through Mr. Holmes to find some more space at the City Council so that we can bring an element of the community policing team back to the area. That's still in the early stages at the moment, but that's what we are aiming to progress. Rural engagement, we've got some really good links now with our rural engagement team. We've seen increased patrols by them, lots of licensing visits, and a number of operations around fly tipping and joint operations around metal theft. Those have been reasonably successful, but not all. As a disruption tool, it's worked quite well. Whether we found the people who are actually doing the main offences, I'm not sure that we have at this time. Stop search, which I know Councillor Hurd is particularly interested in. Unfortunately, I do not have the figures this time round because the system has gone down on us. And Dawn Wallicott, bless her, has been trying everything all day to get me figures, but I don't have them. I will report those back to yourself, Chair, when I have those.
Thank you.
And that's my update. Are there any questions?
Tara, has anyone indicated to ask questions, please?
Yes, Chairman, I have a few. I don't know if you want members of the committee first. It would be Councillor Hurd, then Councillor Bell, and
Yes,
then in addition, Councillor Channer and Councillor Morley. Sorry, Councillor Morley is a member of the committee as well. I've also asked to speak.
Members of the committee first.
Okay, so Councillor Hurd, I believe, is the first one, Chairman.
Hurd, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chief Inspector Scott Haynes, for that update. Let me say that I'm very supportive of the police and the good work that they do in Molden, and I think that it is the aim of this committee to try and make sure that they have the best facilities available at the moment. You spoke about you spoke about the space within the council offices. Now, I know that a year ago we were talking about having an addition of an interview room. Can you tell me, is that in place yet, please?
Right, so that's not in place at this stage. There were a number of issues around location of the room. 2 weeks ago, it may be 2.5 weeks ago, Mr. Hose and myself had a meeting to go over where we were around that. during that meeting, we were able to identify another area within the council building which would be much more suitable to bring the community team into and increase our footprint so that the interview room could actually stay within our current footprint. Does that make sense? I'm just awaiting the final figures on that. Once I have those, I'll be going to my command with the with the begging bowl in hand for the money to make sure that it happens.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And can you confirm that there will be adequate facilities for those officers who are there? And I'm talking particularly about locker spaces, because I know there is a shortage of those. Can you confirm that those will be in place?
Right, those will be in place. If so, the new area that we have looked at, if that area does come off in the way that we would like it to, we will actually see an increase in locker space, which will allow us to incorporate bringing the community, an element of the community policing team in as well.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to hold this. I've got a couple more questions, Chairman, if I may.
Of course you can, Councillor.
Thank you very much. The next thing, and this is really why I wanted to speak to the Police and Crime Commissioner, is because he did promise us some directional signs to actually tell the public where the police station was. So there was a sign from the old police station with a directional sign pointing down Fanbridge Road, one at Warwick Drive and the other one in Wants Road, and another one at the council offices, to at least telling people where the police station is. Can you tell me what the progress is on that, please?
Right. I haven't had an update from the PFCC's office, so I don't know where they stand with it. I know that when I did a check of the old police station, looking at putting some signage there myself, I discovered that that had already been sold, so it was no longer part of our estate, so I couldn't put anything on that building. As to where the directional signs from the PFCC's office, I'm afraid I don't have an update on that, but I'll certainly see what I can find out for you.
Thank you very much. And just on the facilities again, I think we know that there used to be an emergency telephone outside Molden Police Station, and I was informed that we were going to place this emergency telephone outside the current police station, and indeed, if possible, at one in Burnham, but certainly in Molden. Can you tell me what the progress is on that, please?
Okay, so the telephone has been agreed. I chased that last week, and I'm literally waiting for the facility guys to come out and place it. Everything's ready to go. We've identified the location. That has been agreed with council officers. I'm literally just waiting for a workman to turn up with a big yellow phone.
Okay, that's fine. Chairman, I've got some questions on the figures, but I'm happy to give way to other members if they'd like to speak first.
If you wouldn't mind. Who's next?
Chairman, Councillor Morley is next.
Councillor Morley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Sorry, get the camera on. Yes, thank you, Chief Inspector, for coming in and giving us that update. I don't know whether it's me, but I have actually noticed a decrease in the fly tipping going around, and I do get people ask me, what do they do if they see it? Do they call the police? Do they call the Environment Agency? Just really a bit of direction of what I can give them. And yes, and I do hope that we can sort something out for you in Molden, because I think that's really important as well. Thank you.
Yep.
Who was next? Sorry, carry on.
Sorry, fly tipping, reporting of if it is found after the event, so to speak. So we've actually just got items there that should go in through the Council and Environment Agency. If we have someone physically there fly tipping, I would suggest that that's an emergency call to 999.
Okay, all right, no problem. I can pass it on. Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Councillor Bell's next, Chairman.
Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Inspector. I'm just curious about the impact of the lockdown on county lines activity. Have you seen a significant fall, or criminals using different routes? How's that worked?
So initially we saw a significant fall. Like everyone, they had to change their method of working. It has gone back up to the levels we were seeing pre-COVID, most definitely. We're seeing people coming in, certainly using the train lines. I've had to get in contact with my colleagues at the British Transport Police, where we have seen, in particular from the Stratford area, a number of people coming up to Chelmsford initially and then moving out from there. We're still not seeing the cuckooing that we hear about in the rest of the county to such a high level because of our transport links, that we don't get that as much. And realistically, on the Molden side, it's actually more homegrown dealing than county line dealing, if I'm perfectly honest. Certainly what we're seeing a lot more of is the use of cocaine as the main item to be sold, rather than crack, which is what we would normally associate with our county lines. But county lines, unfortunately, are still there, and we're still combating them as best we can.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks very much.
Right. May I go back to tipping again? You had a large-scale operation at Bradwell, I believe. Major tipping going on there. That's now moved to Lower Burnham Road at Marsh Farm. Are you aware of that?
We are.
Okay.
And working with the Environment Agency and other partners.
Right, okay. Less said the better then. Councillor Channer, I believe, next, isn't it?
Chairman, Councillor Siddle, I think was...
Councillor Siddle. Right, okay.
Sorry, thank you.
Councillor Siddle.
Okay, thank you. Just switching on. One of the objectives is about increasing confidence in dealing with rural crime, and one of the things I still really don't feel, living in one of the rural villages, we apart from speed checks, we don't see any police officers. One of the things that we talked about last year was hair coursing. It is still going on extensively in the Great Totten ward. We've had major problems again with it this year, and it's upsetting for residents. It's upsetting that we have the dogs loose afterwards, and that we have to deal with that mess. So that again really is something that needs to be addressed. It's important that one of the things that that is really good that you send out the photographs about what's happening in the Molden. And it is, when I look at the photographs that get sent by the ELC, it is Molden and Burnham that tend to be in those photographs. It's very rare for me to publicise or be able to publicise something about a village. I was able recently, because of the community speed watch in the police officers doing a speed check in Great Totten. So I know the resources are difficult, and most crime happens probably in the towns and things like that. But where we've got the increase in, again, I get things about vehicles being damaged, and there was something recently on a Facebook page about someone approaching a vehicle in Great Totten. And so those are the things that I would like more focus on if we had the resources to deal with. If we can get the community team into Molden, I think that would be brilliant. And I think it's something that the council should focus on doing, and it's good that you've had that meeting with Richard.
Yes, Councillor, it's hair coursing is one of those really difficult situations. My colleagues in the rural engagement team have done a great deal of work on hair coursing, and they really do react quickly when they get the calls around that. Visibility, getting the community team out to Molden so that we're closer, we cut 20-30 minutes off of the travel times. That is the right thing to do, and that's what I really want to get the officers doing out there. The longer term aim for me is to look at a full rural community team, but I need the resourcing to do that. Currently on my community team, I've got 6 vacancies. As quickly as I recruit people move on, retire, etc. So the PFCC's increase has really increased the level of numbers I've got. I've just got to recruit into them all the way. I know when I did this very meeting a couple of, 2 or 3 ago, I was happily saying I've got the whole team. It was fantastic. Since then, there's been more movement, and it's an ever-moving beast. So at the moment, I've got a few gaps, and I'm hoping we can fill them as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Any more members?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Mrs. Chandler and Councillor Morris, and then Councillor Hurd wants to come back, and Councillor Fleming as well, and Councillor Nunn.
Councillor Chandler then first, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. Sorry?
Sorry to keep you waiting.
No problem at all. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you before, but I did send any texty thing to Tara. Thank you, Chairman, very much. And Councillor Bell and I sometimes do think along the same lines, because when we were at South East, she took the very words out of my mouth. And it is on county lines, actually, and the drug trafficking in the area. And I was looking at the figures and the tables below, and especially to Molden. But what I did notice, generally, it appears that drug offences were down. That's on your top table. Then trafficking of drugs was up and possession was down. But in Molden, it appears to be the pattern is that the trafficking is down and the drug offence is up, and also the possession of drugs up. And in fact, trafficking of drugs was down by 64%. I know it's small figures, but I was quite alarmed by that. And I don't know if you're aware of a report that went actually to Essex County Council recently, which was a report of a task and finish group of the which was looking at drugs, gangs, county lines, knife crime. And they actually did advise in that there's 40 map gangs in Essex and many of them homegrown. So I was sort of, when you said most of them in Molden are homegrown, I'm quite interested to know, do we know the statistics of that? And I think what concerns me, having worked with children and young families in the past, and, especially our school children, those school children that might be down in our schools, we've got the secondary schools and everything in Haybridge. And of course, there is normally a criminal exploitation of young people about this. And so that's an area of concern for me. And in my division, I hear things, and also in my ward of Malin, which I represent. And I'm just wondering, I always tell people if they're aware of anything to contact, obviously, the police. And I think that's the first form. So really, it's just about those figures, because trafficking down in drugs of Molden by 64%. And then hearing there's 40 map gangs in Essex and they're homegrown, and you mentioned homegrown. I wondered, could you just perhaps elucidate a bit on those figures? Because, it's a real big issue, I think, in our district. Well, it is in Essex and Suffolk, but I'm obviously concerned about Molden district, hence why the Open Scrutiny Committee tonight is looking into these things.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Right. So trafficking of drugs is that larger figures of drugs coming into the area. So if we take the county lines example, if we had 3 county lines coming into Molden every single day, we made arrests on those lines where we caught people with substantial amounts of drugs, then it would be classed as trafficking, moving it in. What we have found is that, particularly since the work from the serious crime team took out what we knew to be the largest trafficker within Molden, we're seeing a much lower level of dealer in the area. So the arrests are for possession with intent to supply. They're not at the same levels. We have no doubt the same level of drugs are coming in. What we haven't identified at this time are the main trafficker of those drugs. And that's what we need to identify. And that's why you'll see those figures reduce, because we aren't yet at the point where we're taking those people out. So our possession has increased, which shows that the officers are out there, They're doing legitimate stock checks. They're picking up on the local level dealers or small dealers coming into the Molden district and arresting those and charging those with offences.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief Inspector, and thank you, Chairman, for letting me participate. Thank you.
Next one, Tara.
Thank you, Chairman. Did you want to go back to committee members, or do you want me to just do it in the order, Chairman, they came in?
Go back to committee members.
Okay, so the next one would be Councillor Hurd's asked to come back on figures.
Councillor
Hurd. Thank you very much, Chairman. I know, Chief Inspector, that the force antisocial behaviour has increased by 12%, and violence against the person 4.2%, and sexual offences are down. But in Molden, ASB has gone up by 15%. You've already spoken about that. Violence against the person up 186, and that's gone up by 12.5%. And sexual offences increased by 35, which is 37.6%. Other offences like theft, criminal damage, etc., have been reduced. I hope that we're not going for the low-hanging fruit, because we've already spoken about your priorities, which is reducing antisocial behaviour, protecting the vulnerable people, and reducing crime overall. So my question is, in relation to first of all, on those figures, how do you feel about those figures? And the second thing is, I know that Essex is broken up into 3 policing areas, north, south and west. And each of those areas have a team, like a squad, if you like, that look after county lines. I think they're called Raptor teams.
That's right, yeah.
Right, okay. So I know that the north is a massive area to police, and I understand that. But I don't necessarily need the figures tonight, but I would be interested to know how the north section compares to south and west, because I think that looking at the figures for trafficking in Chelmsford, I think it says 62 offences. No, sorry, that's Braintree. 94 offences, 89 in 2019. So I'm just a bit concerned about how they compare, and are they getting the correct number of resources for that, please?
Okay, so Operation Raptor has just gone through a significant change. The Raptor teams were all owned by the individual local policing areas, so north, south and west. They now come under one command, our Operational Policing Command, based at Boreham, and Chief Inspector Lewis Basford runs that team with Detective Superintendent Leighton Hammer as the sort of the command. How they're broken down, I don't know. I don't know how that's changed because it's all very recent, but I will certainly find that out for you. And I'll see if I can ask Chief Inspector Basford to come along, maybe, if the chair would be interested in that, to give us a bit of an update on how Operation Raptor's working across the county.
Yes, I mean, I don't want to get, I wouldn't want you to reveal any operational issues, but I just really need to know how they compare to the west and the south, please.
Yeah, I will find that information out for you. Just write that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
That's it. Anybody else, Tara?
Yes, Chairman, I've still got a list, unfortunately. I've got Councillor Fleming is next, Chairman.
Councillor Fleming, please.
Thank you, Chair. A question for the Chief Inspector. Can I just ask how many are actually on the rural team at the moment? Just looking back at my notes, I think the last time we met, you said that the team would go up to 8, and you mentioned vacancies at the moment. So how many are actually on the team today?
So my rural engagement team, as it stands at the moment, is 6, of which one of those, unfortunately, is isolating, so has to work from home. So I've got 2 vacancies to fill on that, which in our last round of applications, we only found 1 person, and that was literally had that confirmed for me yesterday. Where that person's going, I'm not sure if they're going on to the main CPT or the rural part of it. I need to check that with the inspector running it. But we are now looking to do a force-wide advertisement to see if we can get some more people. If that doesn't work, then I will be looking at doing enforced postings of officers into those jobs which I think are crucial.
Sorry, can I
really
just
popular.
Why do people not want to? Well, why is it not that popular a post?
Some of it is we've got a really young in-service workforce at the moment, and they don't see rural crime as exciting. I've got to be honest with you. They want to drive around in fast cars and do all of the stuff they see on TV, and they don't feel they can get that. We're trying to change that mindset, which is never a quick thing to do. Also, it's distance, it's location of where we're having to post people to. There has been, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, some concern about from the community team about postings to Molden because of the extra cost they will have for travel, etc. But I'm having to be quite draconian about the measures I'm putting in place around that to ensure that we put the right people in the right place.
Good, thank you.
Anybody else, Tara?
Chairman, Councillor Nunn is next.
Councillor Nunn, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good evening. That's all right. Good evening, Chief Inspector. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm really pleased to know, if I've interpreted what you said correctly, that you're looking at beefing up local policing and local deployment, because, you know, as a layperson, but a person on the street, so to speak, I don't think you can beat local policing. In many ways, I wonder if things have turned full circle, and I can't help but think that the disposal of the police station wasn't a good idea after all, although I was reassured at the time by the Police and Crime Commissioner that the building was no longer fit for purposes, but at least there was space and at least it was central. Do you have any thoughts about that at all?
Right. The selling of police estate is a political issue, and I'm not going to get into that one. For me, my background was I was your community policing inspector before I got promoted. I want my community bobbies in the community. That's the only way it works, as far as I'm concerned. So I want to be putting my community team out where they're policing. And I need space to do that.
Yes, very diplomatic answer. Thank you, Chief Inspector. But yes, I agree with you in terms of bobbies on the beat. You know, I look back at the time when Mr. Pipe was up and down the high street on his bike, and Richie Miller was up and down the high street, and there's no substitute for that, really. But thank you very much for what you are doing. But when I eventually see the Police and Crime Commissioner, although he's quite elusive, really, I will be asking that question about the police station.
Thank you.
Next one, Tara.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Morris, next, Chairman.
Councillor Morris, welcome.
Good evening. How are we doing, Chair? Are you okay?
I think so. How are you?
Great, great. Yeah, I just need to comment that you've got a lovely warm glow about you this evening. Then I noticed you've got a light source behind you, so that's the reason. Thank you for letting me speak. Good evening, Chief Inspector Scott Hayes.
Good evening, Councillor. I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, getting there, mate. Getting there. Thank you very much. Just, I'd like to go to the report and 3.1.3. Close to the bottom, approximately 4 or 5 lines in, it's reports of COVID-19 breaches around social distancing. As far as I'm aware, is social distancing covered by legislation, as I believe it to be a guideline? Is that correct, sir?
So my understanding, and this changes so often, as I'm sure you're aware. My understanding is that social distancing is a guideline.
Yeah.
Other parts of the COVID guidelines, legislation, do have powers attached. I would say that one doesn't have a specific power attached, is my understanding.
After reading the full legislation quite soon after it came out, I'm unaware of any actual legislation that's around social distancing. And sadly, some of your officers are actually stating to the public that various parts of guidance is actually law when it isn't. So, you know, I'd encourage all your officers to get a better grasp of it, really, because, you know, trying to enforce guidelines as law and then threatening people with arrest for them is a little bit naughty, should we say. Thank you, Inspector.
No problem, Councillor. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Chairman, next I've got Councillor Fluker, if he's still on the line. He was having problems with his internet.
Councillor Fluker?
He is still here, yep.
Hello?
Point of order, Chair.
What's the problem?
Why is Councillor Fluker asking a question?
He asked to speak. And it's the chairman's prerogative to let people speak if they want to, like other people that aren't on this committee.
As a member of the public?
I don't know what he is. He hasn't said at the moment. He's asked to speak.
He is suspended from all committees, is he not?
Can I refer you to the council's decision, please?
Yes, you may. But may I refer you to the fact that he can attend a meeting if he asks the chairman, but not to take part in the meeting to make decisions, just to ask questions. Like any other councillor can appear at any other meeting and do the same thing.
Could I have my point minuted, please?
Pardon?
Could I have my point minuted, please?
Yes, you may. And if you want to take
Can I offer an opinion, please, Chairman?
You may do so.
Can I offer an opinion, please, Chairman?
Go on, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that even though I'm fully respectful of Councillor Nunn and Councillor Bell bringing to the committee's attention, I do believe that every councillor should be allowed to speak. Can I have that minute, please?
Thank you, Councillor Morris, for that. Thank you for supporting me.
It's not a problem. I'm not supporting you. I'm supporting free speech.
That's it.
And even though the history of this is quite evident.
Can we just please move on, please? Is Councillor Fluker here or not?
Chairman, he is on the call, but it looks like he might be having problems speaking. So shall I move to the next person?
Yes, move to the next person, please.
So the next person is Councillor Hull, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Hull, please.
Oh, thank you very much for letting me speak. I'd just like to say, with our rural team via Dengie, we have quite a good link. That's Dengie Crop Drive. We have a WhatsApp group, but it was quite worrying to realise that a lot of people aren't reporting crimes because they're saying they're getting threatened if they report the crimes, which is quite worrying. Also, just to say, where we are at Elm Farm, I've got a venue for the rural team if ever they want to come in to have a coffee, and the community team are welcome to do the same. because they used to say they'd have to come from Burnham or wherever down here at the Dengie to Chelmsford to get a vehicle to come back. So if ever you want to use this to park a car or whatever you want to do, you're welcome. Just say that, please.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Can I just say, if we have people who are concerned about reporting crime because they feel they're going to be threatened, that's another crime. It's really straightforward. That's another crime. If crimes aren't reported to me, I can't argue the case that I need to put more people in the location. So I'd really encourage people to report it. If people want to report it online, they can by telephone or go to Crime Stoppers. If they're really worried, go to Crime Stoppers. It's completely anonymous, and Crime Stoppers get that information to us. To show how anonymous Crime Stoppers is, in my previous role as an intelligence manager, I would get information around murders and Crime Stoppers would not give me the detail of that person. It's that anonymous. So please encourage people to report it. If it's reported, I've got more ammunition then to stand before my chief and say, I need more officers, boss. So that's it's a really key point.
Just that we feel quite vulnerable because they soon set light to the fire, the barns and things, and as it's happened. So I'll put that to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. Tara, is anybody else?
Chairman, the last person I've got is Councillor Fleming is asking to come back, I believe.
Right, okay, Councillor Fleming, please.
Thank you, Chair. A question for the Chief Inspector. Can I just ask about, do you have any stats for COVID related fines for this area?
Right, I haven't for our local area. What I can tell you is that certainly last weekend we issued our first £50,000 fine, which was for a wedding reception in Margaretting, where the manager of the venue ignored all of the information they were given, knew fully what they were doing, and we rightly issued them with a fixed penalty notice on that. Certainly over that same weekend, we had a number of issues actually it was in Colchester, where over 30 fines were issued. We're issuing very few in Molden and Chelmsford. The vast majority of people are doing exactly the right thing. When we will always try to engage and encourage first. And I've been really clear with the officers to do that. But where we need to enforce, we will enforce. Operation Tallow, which is our response to COVID, have just upped our patrols, etc. And they are now taking all of that information around how many fixed penalty notices we're giving, how many times we're interacting with people, etc. So for the next meeting, I will have that data, but right now we don't have it.
Can I just ask how are you sort of engaging with young people at this time? You're taking a softly approach, because I'm conscious it is quite a difficult situation for them.
Yeah. How do I put this right? So we've used the 4E's approach from the very beginning of lockdown, and invariably that has worked. The tolerance of the public over people not doing what they're supposed to do has changed, and we have seen that change. So I would say with young people and older people, we have continued with our engagement, talking to people, asking them to move apart, move on. 99% do that. The 1% that don't, we are now issuing fines that we probably weren't doing at the beginning of this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Tara, is anybody else?
Yes, Chairman, sorry, Councillor Siddle's asked to come back.
Councillor Siddle, by all means, come back.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief Inspector. From a personal point of view and looking at the figures, and something that I've sort of experienced over the last year or so, is the increase in hate crime on your statistics is quite shocking. Is that something in particular that is occurring? Is it to do with pressure on people? Yeah, so I'm quite concerned as a gay man that hate crime has gone up by so much in the Molden area.
Yeah, we've seen a number of repeat victims is the honest answer to this. So this was actually highlighted about 6-8 weeks ago, when we saw the figures starting to increase. We've had Lou Middleton, who's our hate crime officer for the North, doing a lot more work in the area and looking at if there is a particular person, a particular place. We call it the triangle of crime, victim, location and suspect, and looking at all three of those and putting a more holistic view around, do we need to educate, do we need to enforce, do we need to go into a specific location and put something around that location. So we're doing the work around those. What we haven't found, although we found a number of repeat victims, we haven't found a repeat suspect, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not seeing a specific increase in individuals or groups going after other individuals and groups, but some people seem to be more prone to being victimized than we thought was the case originally. So we're doing a lot of work on it, but it's one of those really difficult ones where what exactly is the spark that's doing it? We're not sure. We haven't seen the same increase in Chelmsford, which does concern me. We've seen a smaller spike, but certainly in Molden we have seen more, and that's again more of a reason why I want the bobbies out there. People won't do this kind of thing in front of a bobby. It's really straightforward because they know they'll get caught. And what I want to ensure is that our visibility is such that we are protecting the most vulnerable in our communities.
Because it is a very difficult crime to report, and the fact that when someone wants to report it, they feel nervous about doing that, and about the situation that they're under. But I think it is important that and having Hate Crime Week is very, very important, and it's good that the council's promoting it, so that we do ensure that those sort of issues are brought to the police.
I mean, we have to be honest and say that the police, certainly 20 years ago when I started, were not great at dealing with this kind of thing. We have come on in leaps and bounds, and we've really listened to partners to understand how we should deal with these things. I think we're progressing. I think we've still got a ways to go, but we need it reported. The more it gets reported, the better we can deal with it. And I think certainly for the Molden district as a whole, I think it'd be a really good idea for us to have an independent advisory group separate to the one held at Chelmsford. You have different problems here. You have a different community, a different demographic, and I'd really like to get that up and running so that we can bring these hate crimes to a specific forum with partners there and with local representatives there, so that we make sure we do the right thing.
Is that something the council would facilitate with you?
Right, so this is a really difficult one because they're independent. They're the independent advisory group. It's quite difficult for the police to start it. So what we need is someone, I don't know, we may have a councillor who has an interest in this sort of thing, who would be willing to look to be a chair and start building on that, and I could put that person in touch with
so I will volunteer to do that now.
Excellent. I will put you in contact with exactly the right person, councillor.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, because it is really important that that these things are reported.
Yeah.
So, thank you. You can get my details and everything.
I've got your details.
But I'm very happy to champion that and take that forward.
Thank you.
Okay, Tara, is anybody else?
No, Chairman, that's it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Inspector, for your report. Very interesting, very detailed, and I think members found that very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right, move on to item 7, Molden District Community Safety Partnership update. In a moment, I will call on officers to present this item. Members, a reminder that if you wish to speak on this item, please make known using the chat function within the meeting. I will then come to you in turn. Please keep your points clear and concise. Mr. Holmes, would you like to start off, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be handing straight over to Spencer Clark, the Public Protection Manager at Chelmsford City Council, who obviously provides our management service of our community safety activities. And I think he's broadcasting from his CCTV control room. So I'll hand to Spencer now.
Thank you very much. Carry on.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. So I've got agenda item 7, which is the report, which I usually bring to members. I will just go through the salient points of the report because hopefully members have had an opportunity to read it in advance. As Mr. Holmes said, I'm live from the CCTV control room, so I will be showing members the Molden cameras at some stage this evening, just to give you some reassurance of the quality of them. So firstly, on page 13, which is the start of the report, looking at the statutory duties, there wasn't a meeting in March due to COVID. So the last meeting we had was October last year. So I'll just reiterate what the 5 priorities for the partnership are for this coming year. And there's also already been a decision. These priorities are going to stay the same for next year as well. So when we do the strategic assessment, which we do each year, it'll be a light touch one this year because of the implications of COVID. Some of the actual work we've wanted to do, we haven't been able to crack on with it as much as we'd like to have done. So those 5 priorities, you'll see them there: tackling crime and reducing offending, driving down antisocial behaviour in public places, identifying and supporting vulnerable people, increase confidence in identifying and reducing rural crime, and finally one around road safety and challenging irresponsible driving. So I'm sure you all agree they're all clear goals for what we have in Molden at the moment. So going on to page 14, I have flagged up about some of the work we've done with BDO around the internal audit, which I'll come on to later in the report. But you'll see that members have had a copy of their action plan, which has been amended, and it's proposed that every overview and scrutiny meeting we have in future, you'll have a copy of the action plan updated with all the clear tasks in there, a red, amber, green rating, and the proposed financial spend on each one of those projects. So I won't say too much about police performance because Chief Inspector Scott Haynes has already reported on police performance. Just really to reiterate the issues which not just Molden's been experiencing, but across the whole of Essex. So service requests for things like antisocial behaviour have increased significantly, but I will put a marker on that because throughout the COVID crisis and throughout lockdown, the police analyst was looking at these figures for us in great detail. And for the Chelmsford and Molden district, we're getting at least usually about 100 reports a month, purely down from people not being happy with their neighbours about social distancing. So whether we agree that's true antisocial behaviour as such, it's just a word of warning on that. The sort of stuff we saw out on the streets was certainly places like Prom Park. We had a lot of youngsters out, and I'm sure you can all relate to this, a lot of youngsters out drinking alcohol and using nitrous oxide canisters. So that was quite prevalent during the summer months. I also vice chair Safer Essex, so that's the same story across the whole of Essex. That seems to have eased up a bit now with schools going back and colleges going back. One of the other areas which the Chief Inspector also flagged up is around domestic violence. Because people were locked down in a locality, there was a concern that there would be a large peak in domestic violence. The police haven't actually seen that, agency haven't seen that. There has been, though, a number of increases for support though through the Essex Compass. On 3.14, just speaking a little bit about preventing violent extremism, we have an action plan in place for that, and I review the quarterly counter-terrorism local profile which comes in. And we also spoke about the independent advisory group. So that actual independent advisory group was set up for Chelmsford and Molden. We used to have quite a few Molden members come along to that. So perhaps I can have a discussion with Councillor Siddle outside that meeting, because we've been meeting on Zoom recently. So perhaps we can have a discussion around how we can take that forward. And I'd be really pleased if we could take that forward. On 3.15, just flagging up about modern day slavery and human trafficking. This morning I spent 2.5 hours on a watching the Rah Rah Theatre Company deliver a play on human trafficking entitled My Mind is Free. So we done a session on the 14th of October for Molden, and then another session today for Chelmsford. It's a fantastic performance it was, and then it broke into workout groups where a number of different agencies were able to speak to professionals about modern day slavery and human trafficking. And you'll see that there's a link at the end of that paragraph for the LGA on work around modern day slavery. On 3.2, which is at the top of page 15, there's an update around the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner activities. What I didn't put in my report, because I don't think it was set in stone at the time, is the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner public meeting for Molden will be held on Monday the 2nd of November. So I will make sure that gets out to all members. I think that's a 6 p.m. start. We did a similar session about a month ago for Chelmsford, and there's quite a large audience for that. So it really, I thought it worked quite well. So that date is Monday the 2nd of November again. You'll see all the 3.22s about the funding, and where the Commissioner has put a lot of money towards charities this year. And also further down in the report, it states about the policing numbers and the increase in the town centre teams and the rural engagement team. Further down on that report, it goes into about the Essex Violence and Vulnerability Unit. That's based in the Community Safety Hub. They actually sit about 2.5 meters away from my desk, so they are socially distanced when they're there. So they are doing an incredible amount of work around vulnerability and tackling exploitation of young people. On to the next page, which is page 16. Just an update about some of the works which we're doing. Like most other agencies, we've had to go onto virtual platforms. So our monthly tasking, which was done on Tuesday, is now done on Microsoft Teams. We're still getting very good attendance for that. And you'll see that referring again to our action plan, which goes through the detail of all of the work which we're doing. We get regular people turning up. You can see, I won't go through all of those groups, but lots of different groups are turning up to tasking, which makes it a true exercise on how we can actually help the police and other agencies tackle crime. Finally, onto the next part on this page, just updating around the Mace meetings. So I attend the mid-Mace meetings, which is missing and child exploitation. So they're held on Microsoft Teams as well. And also attend Mid-Essex Stay Safe. I'm the Vice Chair of Mid-Essex Children's Partnership Board, and also attend, like the Chief Inspector, the Chelmsford and Molden Behaviour and Attendance Partnerships. So there's quite a lot of meetings which officers and agencies attend to tackle and reduce crime. I won't go into the areas about policing around op enlightenment because the Chief Inspector's already spoke about that. But I will sort of talk about some of the other works we're doing around mental health. We continue to have the mental health groups for MID, and we've also managed to get Neighbourhood Watch onto the virtual platform, which is good. So we've been holding Molden neighbourhood watch meetings on Microsoft Teams, which has enabled us to keep the dialogue ongoing. On 3.3, you'll see that we've been busy delivering safeguarding and enhanced safeguarding on virtual platforms for staff, which has included producing a suicide awareness flowchart. And worthy of note that we've also got a new police officer in the team, PC Chris Major, who is one of the new community and safety engagement officers for Essex Police. We'll be getting another officer in January, so there'll be one for Chelmsford and one for Molden, and that will be all about improving engagement with our communities. So you'll see things like Facebook live sessions, which they'll be doing. So that's a real positive area. Just a few of the actual events we've been doing. So we helped out with Essex Fire and Rescue Service on the 2nd and 3rd of September in Burnham on Crouch, a safe, well and secure event. I attended one of those days, and Claire, our officer, attended the next day. Thoroughly enjoyable event. We knocked on over 800 doors during those 2 days and had about 30 really positive referrals. Two of the doors, whilst initially it was mainly about home safety, two of the doors I knocked on out of the first 3, one was an elderly person who we referred to Moat for an additional handrail for a property. And the next door, there was a 80-year-old lady who was profoundly deaf, who, if she would have had a smoke alarm, wouldn't have heard it. So we fitted a sensory smoke alarm to her property. So I thought they were really positive events doing ones like that. We also last Monday supported a week of action around tackling metal thefts and illegal waste carriers. This event was done by the community safety team, the community engagement team, Essex Police Rural Engagement Team, and HMRC as well. We also had the High Sheriff turn up to this event. Stopped over 100 cars that day. There were 10 referrals alone for work which the district council have to do. I'm not sure how many policing ones there were, but it was a really good event for the day. And also just flagging up, last week was a National Hate Crime Awareness Week. So the District Council provided daily social media posts for that week, just to raise the awareness of hate crime. 3.34, and this is where I'm going to be as techy as I can be. I thought about sharing a screen, but I thought, oh no, I'm going to do this live so you can actually, it's more believable now. So I've been working on a capital project for Chelmsford and Molden to procure a CCTV system. This contract was awarded on the 1st of April. So a large majority of these works were done during lockdown, which was meant we got on quite well. So all of the cameras we've put in at Molden are now been migrated to a digital high definition units, and they've got full connectivity over a secure video management system. So the areas which we're covering in Molden, and I'm not going to show you them all tonight because we'll be here all night, are the High Street, Promenade Park, Hive Quay, and there's also a couple of extended areas which are Riverside Park in Burnham and a couple of our community centres. So they're monitored here where I am now in the Chelmsford CCTV control room. Molden's been effectively live since the 1st of July. And what I'm going to do quickly now is I'm going to stand up, and I know this might look a little bit messy, but I'm going to show you the cameras live on a large monitor behind me. There you go. It's almost seamless, that was, wasn't it? So what I've done is I've got the Molden cameras on a sequence. So as you see behind you, we've got the Wetherspoons of Rose and Crown next to us. Then we've got the Sark Turkish restaurant on the other part of the High Street. So this is really just to sort of reassure you, Back Lane car park, that we've got pretty good coverage of Molden. These cameras are monitored 24/7, 365 days a year, and we've always got 2 members of staff in this control room. And they're actually, whilst I'm showing you on the large monitor behind me, they're actually also done on a very large screen bank of monitors that you'll see behind me there now. There you go. So that's the actual control room. So you'll see that we have 2 workstations there. So Molden is on the main monitor wall, but also on this small one behind. So on Friday and Saturday nights, we have an extra member of staff in here. So that's really just a very quick introduction to CCTV for Molden. Perhaps when the lockdown restrictions ease, we could have a group of members come along to actually have a look at the system in detail. I'll drop back to my seat now, if that's okay. So that's the CCTV system, which has been put in to Molden. And not only has it been used for a number of incidents around crime to date, but also it's been really useful around COVID as well. So things like ensuring that there's adequate spacing for the high street and how we've been doing the design, and it's enabled the council to make more informed decisions about what's actually happening. So only last week we provided footfall figures for Tuesdays and Saturdays in line with the government reporting. So the staff in the control room have been doing those footfall counts as well. So it's not just all about crime, it's also about how we can also use it more effectively. So we spoke about hotspots for crime. I think the Chief Inspector brought these up a bit earlier. So really the hotspots for Molden are the High Street, because we've got drinking establishments in there. Promenade Park, where we tend to get some youth nuisance over the summer months. And Hive Quay, where we've had some issues which both the police and the council have been dealing with. So what we have been looking at is reviewing the possibility of having a public space protection order for the High Street and those areas of the park. So we could then use it to tackle things like inappropriate alcohol use outside those public houses and drug misuse. Its Chief Inspector's already spoken about the work which has been done around tackling drugs. We've been continuing those works. Another area which we got flagged up quite a few times over the summer months was people coming out of lockdown and using our inland waterways inappropriately. So places like Hoe Mill Lock and Beeley Falls, there's quite a few issues around antisocial behaviour, littering, drunkenness and dangerous parking. So we've been working with the South Essex Parking Partnership to tackle some of those issues, and we've also done some multi-agency days with places like people like the fire service and the Environment Agency to tackle that. Finally, final point I was going to flag up, because this is something which I need to refer to over in Scrutiny. We had a BDO internal audit of community safety back in April, and the final report was considered by Molden's Performance, Government and Audit Committee on the 30th of July. The audit did receive moderate assurance, which is quite good in the ears of auditors, and that was for design and operational effectiveness. But there was a few issues which are flagged up. One of those was about the responsible authorities group not meeting as regularly as what it should do. So that's been rectified now by putting meetings into the diary for the next up until March 21. And the other one was about how we report back to RAG and overview and scrutiny on performance. So that's why what they asked for was an action plan with everything specific put into the action plan, which was attached as an appendix with a red, amber, green rating to show you what where we are on performance for each of those, and also that the Responsible Authorities Group also gets a quarterly report on finance, and you'll see that spend on finance has also been put into that action plan as well. So the Responsible Authorities Group, when we met last on the 8th of September, was happy that all of those recommendations have been completed, and therefore the purpose of this discussion here is I am now reporting back to Overin Scrutiny to say that the Responsible Authorities Group is happy that those have been completed. So you'll see I put the conclusion in there about the joint working which we're doing, and back to page 1 for the actual recommendations, that you note the report and note that the actual actions for the BDO report have been completed as well, Chair.
Thank you. All right, I'll do the next bit. Thank you. The recommendations as set out in the report is as follows: that members review and comment on the current progress of the initiatives undertaken by the partnership to date, and note the strategic priorities for 2020-21, and note the completed recommendations of the internal audit of the Community Safety Partnership. If any member wishes to second that motion, please turn on your video, unmute your microphone and state your name now, please. Anybody?
I will second it.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chairman, I wasn't quite quick enough with my mouse.
No, it's confusing which button to press. That's why I leave mine on all the time. If I have to keep pressing it, I'm lost. Right, if any members wish, thank you. I will now invite members to make any comments on the report. Tara, who's indicated to speak, please?
Chairman, Councillor Bell and then Councillor Morris.
Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Spencer, for that. That was very informative. I just wanted to say that I believe there have been some conversations around CCTV for Burnham and with Wendy Stamp, and just to say that I'm very keen to progress that. That's still very much on the table. So hope to be able to speak to you about that in the future.
Yes,
thank you.
Would you like me to come back on that, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes. So I've spent some time down in Burnham with Councillor Stamp. We've done a survey of Burnham and put in some budgetary prices. So we've done a design for Burnham, and I agree with Councillor Bell that would be really good if we could get that extended to that area.
Excellent. Thank you, through the chair.
Thank you. Councillor Morris, I believe, Tara?
Yes, Chairman, that's right. And then Councillor Fleming also has asked to speak.
Councillor Morris, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, Spencer. How are you?
Good evening, Councillor Morris.
I noticed you've got an extra big smile when you see me pop up there. Spencer, as you might remember, that for quite a few years now, even before my time as a councillor, way back in the Stephen Kavanagh days, I was always quite interested in the vulnerability angle because I didn't believe that Essex Police were putting enough into it. So, Spencer, I'd like to ask, your third priority is vulnerability and helping out vulnerable people. What is your definition of a vulnerable person? Could you give me the legal definition of a vulnerable person?
I can't give you the legal definition of a vulnerable person. So what I would say,
you know why you can't give me do you know why you can't give me the definition of a vulnerable person? Legal definition of a vulnerable,
because there isn't one. Would that be the case?
There isn't one. So
okay.
It took me months, absolutely months, and I've been working on this for quite a few years to actually get anything from Essex Police, and I finally got a Freedom of Information request, and it comes from Peel, Police Effectiveness 2015 Vulnerability. And I would just like to read this out. The definition of a vulnerable victim would be an individual eligible for extra support under the Code of Practice for Victims, defined in the code as an individual who was under the age of 18 at the time of the offence, or whose quality of evidence is likely to be affected because of a mental disorder, another significant impairment of intelligence and social functioning, or who has a physical disability or is suffering from a physical disorder. Next to that is the definition of vulnerability, which would be condition of a person who is in need of special care, support or protection because of age, disability or risk of abuse or neglect. Now, as we all know, quite a lot of the people you come into contact with would fit that criteria. But your officers, and I know some of them are very good, some of them are not so good, as with all different professions and whatever else. But how are you going to get the message across to your bobbies on the beat what a vulnerable person is?
Would you like to answer that, or reply?
I can't do answer on behalf of the police because I don't work for the police. I don't know if Mr. Scott Haynes is still on the call, but when we talk about vulnerability, you can see that in the brackets we put domestic abuse, social isolation, mental health, hate crime. Could be young people being exploited, could be old people being exploited. So it is I agree with you, Councillor. It's a very, very wide area we're looking at, and we can only work with those people we know. And that's one of the really big difficulties around social isolation. You know, people who may live out on the Dengie Peninsula, trying to get them to access services, trying to get them to know that there's services to be accessed is really, really difficult. You know, so I agree with you, but I can't answer that question on behalf of the police though about what is a vulnerable person.
Thank you very much, Spencer. You've had
as well
probably 5 years warning that this might be coming. I believe that you never expected to see me sitting here as a elected councillor asking you that question, so I'll let that one go. But as with most problems, I do believe the answer would lie with education and better training. Thank you, Spencer, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morris. Very informative. We've got Councillor Fleming now, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Spencer, for that. Thanks for showing us the control room. I'm much reassured because I often walk my dog down the high street in the evening when it's dark. So now I know that you and your staff will be there watching over me. But my question was about the 3PR project. I see that it's on hold due to COVID. Do you have any news when that would be restarted?
Yeah, I think there's actually been restarted now. So I know the officer who works for the Safe Essex Parking Partnership has still been making contacts with schools. I think one of the problems we've had with schools is some schools do not want anyone going into them at the moment, and I totally see that. And it just means that we've had to, like we're doing tonight, we've had to do things differently. You know, like I said earlier in my report, last year when my officers went to Clacton to see the Rah 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 Theatre Company do a performance, it wasn't over Zoom on YouTube like it was today. So we just have to think about different ways of doing it. So I think the young lady who's been looking after that has been doing some of the education online, but trying to get, because so many schools, particularly primary schools, have had so much to do around COVID and social distancing and one way in, one way out. I think parking has just gone on the back burner to a certain extent, which is a shame. But you know, we won't be like this forever. But we'll continue, hopefully, we'll continue having that dialogue with the schools and seeing what we can do to reduce, you know, the impact of the irresponsible parking around schools.
Great, good. Spencer, and it was heartwarming to know that your visits with Claire, you know, just reaching those two elderly residents, you know, with something practical, you know, really makes a difference, because they don't ask for help, you know, that age group. So yeah, good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, Tara?
No, Chairman, no one else has indicated they wish to speak.
Right, I'll ask the committee to agree the Recommendation by assent if possible.
Agreed.
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 Spencer, thank you very much for doing your report. Very good, very informative. Even though you had to try and ask some awkward questions, but never mind. That's how it goes, isn't it? Right, any other urgent business that the chairman decides are urgent? I'd like to thank everyone for putting up with me and wish my successor every luck in the future. And I'll now close the meeting at 19:29. Thank you all.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.